Welcome to today's presentation. Let's start by talking about calcium, which is actually the most abundant mineral in our body. Can you believe that? About 99% of it is stored in our bones and teeth, giving them strength and structure. The remaining 1%, though small, plays a really vital role in some crucial functions. It helps with blood clotting, which is essential when we get a cut. It's also important for nerve signaling, so our nerves can communicate effectively, and for muscle function, allowing our muscles to contract and relax properly. Now, here's something interesting to note. If we don't get enough calcium from our diet, our body will actually start to draw it from our bones to keep these other functions running smoothly. Over time, that can weaken our bones and increase the risk of conditions like osteoporosis. So, getting enough calcium isn't just about strong bones, it's about supporting many vital processes that keep us healthy. This really ties into the overall theme of understanding how essential minerals like calcium are for our well-being. Now, let's explore the various functions of calcium in our body. First, calcium plays a crucial role in bone health. It's what helps build and maintain our strong bones and teeth, which are essential for our overall structure and strength. Next, calcium is vital for muscle function because it enables muscles to contract properly, whether we're moving or simply staying upright. It also supports nerve transmission, meaning it helps facilitate communication between our brain and the rest of our body, ensuring signals are sent smoothly. Additionally, calcium is important for blood clotting, a key part of wound healing and preventing excessive bleeding. Lastly, calcium is involved in enzyme activation, assisting various enzymes in carrying out essential processes throughout our body. All these functions highlight how integral calcium is to maintaining our overall health and well-being. Let's take a closer look at the daily calcium requirements, also known as the RDA. As you can see, calcium needs actually vary quite a bit depending on age and gender. For example, children and teenagers need more calcium because their bones are growing rapidly. That's why the recommended intake for ages 9 to 18 is around 1,300 milligrams daily. On the other hand, adults between 19 and 50 years need about 1,000 milligrams a day. But as we get older, especially for women over 51 and men over 71, the requirements increase again, up to 1,200 milligrams daily. This is mainly to help offset the bone density loss that naturally occurs with aging. What's important to remember here is that these guidelines are designed to help us maintain healthy bones and prevent issues like osteoporosis later in life. So, understanding these ranges can really help us plan our diets better and ensure we're meeting our body's needs at every stage. Let's talk about some of the key factors that influence how well our body absorbs calcium. First, vitamin D plays a crucial role here. It actually enhances calcium absorption in the gut, making sure our body gets the most out of the calcium we consume. Next, as we age, the efficiency of calcium absorption tends to decrease, which is one reason why older adults need to pay extra attention to their calcium intake. Now, certain compounds found in foods like spinach and beans, namely oxalates and phytates, can interfere with calcium absorption, effectively blocking some of the calcium from being absorbed into our bloodstream. So, while these foods are healthy, it's good to be aware of how they might impact calcium uptake. Lastly, lifestyle factors such as high sodium and caffeine intake can increase calcium excretion through urine. This means that consuming a lot of salt and coffee might lead to more calcium loss, which is important to consider when aiming for optimal bone health. Understanding these factors helps us see how various elements, from nutrients to lifestyle choices, can influence calcium absorption, tying back to the overall importance of maintaining strong bones and proper nutrition. Let's take a closer look at the classification of calcium-rich foods, which is crucial for effective meal planning. First, we have dairy products, which are the primary source of calcium in many diets around the world. They include milk, cheese, and yogurt, and are often the most accessible and concentrated sources of calcium. Next, we have plant-based options. These are especially important for vegans and vegetarians, as they provide alternative sources of calcium. Think of foods like leafy greens, almonds, and fortified plant milks. These can help meet your calcium needs without relying on dairy. Fortified foods also play a key role. Many products are now enriched with calcium to help fill nutritional gaps, especially for those who might not consume enough through natural sources alone. Examples include certain cereals, juices, and plant-based milks. Lastly, there are non-dairy animal sources, such as fish with bones, like sardines and salmon. These are excellent sources because the bones are edible and rich in calcium. Understanding these different categories helps us diversify our diet and ensure we're meeting our calcium needs effectively. This classification ties into the overall theme of balanced nutrition and making informed choices for bone health. Dairy-based calcium sources. Dairy products are a fantastic source of calcium because they contain bioavailable calcium, which means the body can easily absorb it. For example, just 1 cup of milk provides about 300 milligrams of calcium, making it a convenient daily source. Similarly, 100 grams of cheddar cheese can supply around 720 milligrams of calcium, which is quite a substantial amount. Since dairy products are commonly consumed every day, they really serve as practical and reliable sources of calcium to support our bone health and overall nutrition. This emphasizes the importance of including dairy in our diet, especially when aiming to meet our calcium needs. Now, let's take a closer look at plant-based calcium sources. While some plant foods do contain calcium, it's important to remember that absorption can vary quite a bit depending on certain compounds called oxalates. For example, leafy greens like kale and bok choy are great options because they are low in oxalates, which means our bodies can absorb the calcium more effectively. On the other hand, spinach, despite being high in calcium, has a lot of oxalates, which can significantly reduce calcium absorption. Additionally, nuts, seeds, and legumes are not only good sources of calcium, but also provide other essential minerals and healthy fats that support overall health. So, when considering plant-based sources for calcium, it's smart to choose those with lower oxalate levels to maximize absorption, and also include a variety of nuts, seeds, and legumes to benefit from their additional nutrients. This approach helps us get the most out of plant-based calcium options and supports our overall nutritional goals. Now, let's talk about fortified foods, especially for those who avoid dairy. Food fortification is really a key strategy here because it helps ensure everyone gets enough calcium. For example, fortified plant milks and orange juice can provide as much calcium as traditional cow's milk. So, when you're choosing these beverages, it's important to check the labels. Look for around 300 milligrams of calcium per serving. That's generally considered ideal. Another good option is tofu. If it's prepared with calcium salts, it can be a high-calcium food, making it a great substitute. The main takeaway here is that, whether it's plant-based milks, juices, or tofu, paying attention to calcium content on labels can really help you meet your nutritional needs. This approach ties into the overall theme of finding practical, accessible sources of essential nutrients, even when avoiding certain food groups. Now, let's look at some animal-based non-dairy sources of calcium. Small fish like sardines and salmon, especially when they include the bones, are actually very high in calcium. For example, 100 grams of sardines can provide around 325 milligrams of calcium, which is quite significant. Shellfish and eggs also contain small amounts of calcium, so they can contribute to your daily intake. Additionally, these sources often contain vitamin D, which plays a crucial role in calcium absorption. Without enough vitamin D, your body can't efficiently absorb the calcium from these foods, even if they're rich in it. So, when considering non-dairy options for calcium, animal-based sources like sardines and salmon with bones are excellent choices, especially because of their combined calcium and vitamin D content. This highlights the importance of a varied diet to support bone health and overall nutrition. Let's talk about calcium in vegan and vegetarian diets. Getting enough calcium on a plant-based diet does require some planning, but it's definitely achievable. First, it's important to include foods rich in calcium, such as dark leafy greens like kale and collard greens, as well as legumes and fortified plant milks. These are great sources that can help meet your calcium needs naturally. If, after considering these foods, your dietary intake still isn't enough, calcium supplements can be a helpful option. And remember, calcium doesn't work alone. Combining it with vitamin D is essential because vitamin D helps your body absorb calcium more effectively. Lastly, don't forget that regular exercise, especially weight-bearing activities, plays a crucial role in maintaining strong bones. So, by planning your diet carefully and incorporating these elements, you can support healthy bones while following a plant-based lifestyle. Let's talk about calcium supplements. Supplements can be really helpful when your dietary intake isn't enough to meet your needs. However, it's important to remember that they shouldn't replace a balanced diet, but rather complement it. There are different types of calcium supplements to consider. Calcium carbonate, for example, works best when taken with food since it needs stomach acid for proper absorption. On the other hand, calcium citrate can be taken without food, which makes it a good option, especially for older adults who may have reduced stomach acid production. Now, while supplements can be beneficial, it's crucial not to overdo it. Excessive calcium supplementation can lead to health risks, such as an increased chance of kidney stones or even cardiovascular issues. So, the key takeaway here is that supplementation should be used thoughtfully and in conjunction with a healthy diet, always keeping in mind the potential risks of taking too much. Let's talk about some signs of calcium deficiency. When calcium levels are low, you might notice muscle cramps or spasms, which can be quite uncomfortable. You could also experience numbness or tingling in your fingers, a sensation many people find unusual or irritating. Additionally, brittle nails and bones are common signs, indicating that your body isn't getting enough calcium to keep those structures strong. Over the long term, calcium deficiency can lead to more serious conditions like osteopenia and osteoporosis, which weaken your bones significantly. The key takeaway here is that regular intake of calcium is essential for prevention. Making sure you get enough calcium through your diet or supplements can help you avoid these issues and support overall bone health. Let's talk about some practical tips for maintaining adequate calcium levels. First, it's really important to spread your calcium intake throughout the day. Instead of having a big dose at one time, try to include calcium-rich foods in all your meals. This helps your body absorb and use the calcium more effectively. Next, make sure you're getting enough vitamin D. Vitamin D is crucial because it helps your body absorb calcium properly. You can get sunlight, which naturally boosts your vitamin D levels, or include foods like fatty fish and fortified products. Supplements are also an option if you're not getting enough from your diet and sunlight. Another key point is to reduce excess salt and caffeine. Both of these can increase calcium loss through your urine, which isn't ideal if you're trying to keep your bones strong. So, moderating your intake can make a real difference. Finally, engaging in weight-bearing exercises, like walking, jogging, or strength training, can help strengthen your bones. Exercise is an essential part of maintaining bone health and preventing osteoporosis. All these tips connect back to our overall theme of supporting bone strength and preventing future issues. Small, consistent habits can really add up to make a big difference in your bone health. Now, let's talk about calcium needs in special populations. Certain groups actually require higher amounts of calcium to support their unique physiological needs. For example, children and teenagers need extra calcium because they're in a critical phase of bone development and growth. Pregnant and lactating women also have increased calcium requirements because they're supporting fetal development and breastfeeding. And then there are elderly and postmenopausal women who face a higher risk of bone loss due to changes in hormone levels. What this highlights is the importance of tailoring dietary plans specifically for these groups. By understanding these distinct needs, we can better ensure they get the right amount of calcium to support their health. This connects back to our overall theme of how proper calcium intake is vital for maintaining strong bones and preventing deficiencies across different life stages. Now, let's take a look at some real-life applications of calcium-rich diets. First, we see that incorporating calcium into school meal programs is a practical way to ensure children get enough of this vital mineral early on. It's about making healthy choices accessible and normal in everyday settings. Next, in public health nutrition, there's a growing trend of adding calcium to staple foods, things like bread or cereals, to boost overall intake across populations. This strategy helps address calcium deficiency on a larger scale without requiring significant changes in individual behavior. Hospital nutrition plans also play a crucial role, especially for patients with osteoporosis. Providing calcium-rich diets in hospitals can aid in managing and preventing further bone loss, which is essential for recovery and long-term health. And finally, encouraging education across the entire population about calcium sources is key. When people understand where they can get calcium, whether from dairy, leafy greens, or fortified foods, they're more empowered to make informed dietary choices. All these applications highlight how integrating calcium into various aspects of daily life can have a meaningful impact on health, aligning with our overall goal of promoting bone health and preventing deficiency. Let's look at a practical example to bring these concepts to life. Imagine a school that implemented a fortified breakfast program. In this case, children aged 6 to 12 were given milk and cereal that were specifically fortified with essential nutrients, including calcium. Over the course of 6 months, we saw their average calcium intake increase by about 40%, which is quite significant. This increase in calcium intake was associated with observed improvements in bone growth markers, indicating that the fortified foods had a positive impact on their bone development. This example highlights how targeted nutritional interventions can lead to measurable health benefits, especially in growing children. It also underscores the importance of choosing the right fortified foods to effectively address deficiencies. Overall, this case demonstrates how strategic dietary programs can make a real difference in public health, aligning with our broader goal of promoting better nutrition for vulnerable populations. Let's take a moment to clarify some common myths and facts about calcium. First, many people believe that only dairy products provide calcium. However, that's not the case. There are plenty of plant-based foods like leafy greens, nuts, and seeds, as well as fortified foods, that also supply calcium. So you don't have to rely solely on dairy to meet your calcium needs. Next, there's a misconception that supplements are always the better option. In reality, whole foods tend to be absorbed more effectively by your body and are safer for long-term health. Plus, they come with other beneficial nutrients that supplements might lack. Finally, many think you only need calcium when you're older. But the truth is, your peak bone mass develops before age 30. This means establishing strong bones early on is key to preventing issues later in life. Connecting all of this to our overall theme, it's clear that understanding the real facts about calcium can help us make better choices for lifelong bone health. In conclusion, calcium plays a crucial role in maintaining lifelong health. It's essential for strong bones, teeth, and overall bodily functions. The good news is, there are many different food sources that can help us meet our calcium needs, so it's often possible to get enough through a balanced diet. However, supplementation should only be considered when necessary, such as in cases where dietary intake isn't sufficient. It's especially important to pay attention to calcium needs during key life stages like growth, aging, or when there are dietary restrictions that might limit calcium intake. By being mindful of these factors, we can ensure we're supporting our health at every stage of life. Remember, calcium is a vital nutrient, and thoughtful management of your intake can make a significant difference in your overall well-being. Let's take a moment to acknowledge the key sources that supported the information we've discussed today. The first is the National Institutes of Health, or NIH, which provides a wealth of research and data on nutrition and health. Next is the World Health Organization, or WHO, whose guidelines and global health insights help shape our understanding of nutrition standards worldwide. We also relied on the USDA food composition databases, which offer detailed nutritional profiles of a wide variety of foods, an essential resource for accurate dietary analysis. Additionally, peer-reviewed nutrition journals are crucial. They ensure that the information we use is scientifically validated and current. I want to thank all of you for your attention and engagement throughout this presentation. Your interest in nutrition and health is vital as we work toward making informed, healthier choices. Remember, these reputable sources are invaluable for anyone looking to deepen their understanding or verify information. Thank you again for being here and for your commitment to learning more about nutrition.